Imagine looking up at the sky and seeing absolutely nothing. No white jet streams, no distant rumble of engines, just empty blue. At any given moment today, roughly 10,000 commercial aircraft carry over 1 million passengers across the globe. Aviation is the invisible force holding our hyper-connected global civilization together. It allows us to cross vast oceans in hours, trade with distant nations overnight, and maintain relationships across continents. But what if this critical link suddenly snapped? What if a future energy crisis, extreme environmental mandates, or a technological collapse grounded every single airplane forever? This is not just a story about longer vacation trips. It represents a fundamental restructuring of human society, commerce, geopolitics, and how we experience time itself. Let us explore what a world without flight would actually look like. The immediate aftermath of a sudden, permanent grounding of all aviation would trigger a massive global crisis. Within the first 24 hours, millions of travelers would find themselves stranded thousands of miles from home, with no rapid way to reunite. Tourism-dependent economies, from Hawaii to the Caribbean, would face immediate devastation. Hotels and businesses built around a constant influx of airborne tourists would empty within days, leading to massive layoffs. But the crisis would run far deeper than ruined vacations. The global supply chain, which relies heavily on air cargo for time-sensitive deliveries, would instantly fracture. Air freight accounts for 35% of global trade by value, despite carrying only a small fraction of total weight. Without cargo planes, the delivery of critical medical supplies, such as organs, rare vaccines, and specialized pharmaceuticals, would ground to a halt. High-tech manufacturing would stumble. Tech hubs in Silicon Valley and Asia rely on aircraft to move microchips, precision components, and prototype hardware overnight. Without this rapid transit, production lines for smartphones, medical devices, and automobiles would freeze, causing a massive slowdown in technological innovation. The concept of next-day international delivery would vanish, forcing businesses to completely rethink global logistics. To survive, the global economy would have to adapt, returning to maritime and overland trade with an intensity not seen since the 19th century. Cargo ships would become the absolute lifelines of international commerce. However, sea travel is notoriously slow. A journey that once took a cargo plane 12 hours would now take a container ship 2 to 3 weeks. This massive delay would require societies to transition from just-in-time supply chains to massive localized warehousing systems. Countries would have to become far more self-sufficient, producing their own food, medicine, and technology rather than relying on distant manufacturing hubs. The highly globalized economy would shrink, giving way to powerful, self-reliant regional networks. With the skies permanently closed, the focus of human transportation would shift to the ground, triggering the greatest railway boom in history. Governments would redirect hundreds of billions of dollars, previously spent on airport infrastructure, into building vast, interconnected high-speed rail networks. In North America, where passenger rail has historically lagged, we would see a massive transformation. High-speed rail corridors would link major cities. A journey from New York to Chicago, which currently takes 19 hours by traditional train, would be reduced to just over 3 hours via high-speed maglev networks. Trains traveling at 300 miles per hour would become the primary way to travel across continents. For transcontinental travel, engineers would push the boundaries of physics, accelerating vacuum tube transportation systems, commonly known as hyperloops. Operating in near-vacuum tubes, these could theoretically transport passengers at speeds exceeding 700 miles per hour, rivaling passenger jets. Imagine traveling from Los Angeles to New York in under 4 hours, all while staying firmly on the ground. However, building this infrastructure would require trillions of dollars and decades of construction. For countries separated by oceans, the challenge would be daunting. While transoceanic tunnels have been proposed, the engineering and financial hurdles of bridging the Atlantic or Pacific Oceans with rail remain practically insurmountable. This brings us to the return of the oceans as formidable barriers. Without airplanes, the era of the ocean liner would experience a massive renaissance. Crossing the Atlantic from New York to Southampton would once again become a grand, multi-day journey. Instead of a cramped 7-hour flight, travelers would board giant eco-friendly passenger ships powered by advanced sails, hydrogen fuel cells, or nuclear reactors. The voyage would take 5 to 7 days. Travel would no longer be a minor detail of our lives. It would become a major event. The very concept of distance would shift, and the fast-paced nature of modern life would slow down. This shift towards slow travel would profoundly impact human culture. In our current world, we treat travel as a cheap commodity, flying to a foreign city for a weekend without absorbing the local culture. In a world without airplanes, travel would require planning, patience, and a significant investment of time. Tourism would become a rare, deeply cherished experience. When people did travel abroad, they would stay for months rather than days, leading to deeper cultural immersion. However, for the average person, international travel would become a luxury of the wealthy or a once-in-a-lifetime pilgrimage, echoing the patterns of the early 20th century. Geopolitically, a world without airplanes would look vastly different. The United States, protected by 2 oceans, would find itself physically isolated from Europe and Asia. This isolation could spark a resurgence of isolationist foreign policy, as projecting military power would become slow and difficult. The era of rapid global military deployment would end. Aircraft carriers and Navy vessels would regain their status as the primary tools of global influence, though response times would be measured in weeks, not hours. Consequently, regional powers would dominate their respective continents. The European Union would grow more integrated, while Asian nations would form tighter alliances, making global coordination far more challenging. While the economic and social challenges of a world without airplanes would be immense, there is one area that would experience an undeniable historic triumph: the global environment. Today, aviation is responsible for approximately 2 to 3% of global carbon dioxide emissions, and its total warming impact is even higher due to high-altitude contrails and other emissions. It's one of the hardest industries to decarbonize. Without planes, billions of tons of greenhouse gases would stop entering the upper atmosphere every year. The air around major metropolitan areas would become cleaner, and noise pollution near airports would disappear entirely, allowing local ecosystems and communities to heal. The reduction in emissions would provide a significant boost to global efforts to combat climate change, showing us what a truly low-carbon future could look like. This environmental healing would be accompanied by a profound shift toward localization. With global shipping restricted, communities would begin to look inward. Neighbors would rely more heavily on one another. We would see a renaissance in local agriculture as flying exotic fruits across the globe ends. Seasonal eating would become the norm again. Local manufacturing, craftsmanship, and community-centered entertainment would flourish. People would rediscover the beauty of their own regions, exploring nearby parks, coastal towns, and historic sites via train. The loss of global mobility could spark a powerful renewal of local culture and community connection that many feel has been lost in our hyper-globalized era. Ultimately, a world without airplanes is a world of deep compromises. We would lose the incredible ability to connect with anyone, anywhere, in less than 24 hours. We would lose the rapid exchange of ideas, goods, and cultures that have defined the 21st century. Some families would remain permanently divided by oceans, and the global economy would face a painful, prolonged contraction. Yet, in return, we would gain a healthier planet, quieter skies, and a slower, perhaps more meaningful lifestyle. We would be forced to build incredibly efficient ground infrastructure, revitalizing our trains and ships. It's a world that is simultaneously smaller and larger. Smaller because our daily lives would center around our local communities, and larger because the vast distances of our planet would once again command our respect. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this exploration of a world transformed, please consider subscribing to the channel and liking this video. Share your thoughts in the comments below. How would your life change if you could never board a plane again? Until next time, keep exploring the possibilities of our world, and take care.